This is Gemara Menachos Daf Nun Vav, and we're holding in the top line of Nun Vav Amid Aleph. We're middle of a lengthy Shak Levitaria that hopefully we'll be able to dive right in. So let's get straight to it on the top line. Maskif. We begin with a kasha. Maskif la Ravina. Teinach le Rabbi Yehuda le Rav Shimon ma'ikal amemer. So who's Rabbi Yehuda? Tabrashi Kiza saying that we're talking about Lamarbi le Smicha. Therefore, we need the Mu'ute Mitzafin. Rabbi Yehuda holds that the Chatas requires Smicha, and therefore there's the Havamina that it might have to be done Batzafin, and therefore everything makes sense. But according to Rav Shimon, holds there's no Smicha. Michael and Meimar, why would we need a pasuk to exclude it from being brought Batzafin? Says the Gemara, Amar le Marzutra Bri de Amar le Marzutra de Ramari the Ravina. Rav Yehuda Nami. According to Rav Yehuda as well, says the Gemara, my dis Rabbi is Rabbi, my de lo is Rabbi, lo is Rabbi. So the Gemara says that again we had a kasha. Rav Yehuda's go to Rav Shimon is Shver. Says the Gemara back. A good yid asking a kasha with a kasha. No, even Rav Yehuda is Shver. Why is according to Rav Yehuda Shver? Says the Gemara, because it's true. When we have the extra reboy by the chatas, I understand that. But my deloyis Rabbi, loyis Rabbi, and therefore that only could come to include the smicha. However, it cannot as well come to include that it needs to be done batzafain. So why would you need to exclude batzafain? Maybe you're going to tell me if we would not have the pasuk to be mimai to exclude it from the din of safain. I would think teisi bibinyanav. I would think we could learn out from a binyanav. But says the Gemara, no. Smicha gufei l'shekramine v'teisi binyanav. Then smicha itself, we would have been able to learn out from the binyanav, and it's not true. So we have a pasuk about smicha. Ella. So what are you forced to say? It must be that there's two different times. There's this din of Lisha, this din of the Miluim, this din of the inaugurational Karbanos. And that cannot be learned, L'dairais, the Karbanos, they go forever. And if that is true, so says the Gemara, we shouldn't need the miot at all. So says the Gemara, so what do we do with the word oisai? Ella oisai, says the Gemara 10 lines down. Rather, it, the chatos to safon vina shoichet, and this is what the miot is coming to teach us, that what? The shoichet does not have to be oimid basafon. Says the Gemara, no, we don't need this either. Mid Rabbi Chaya nafka. Because we can learn this from Rabbi Chaya de Tanya. Rabbi Achaya Imer, says the Torah, V'shachat oisoi al yerech ha-mizvech savoina. Ma ta'am aleimar, what's the pasuk teaching me? Lefi shematzinu b'mekabel, we found the one catching the blood shayim b'atzafon, mekabel b'atzafon. Really? We find... One second. Tamalaymar lefi shemtzid b'mekabel. That what? Sh'oimid b'atzafon u'mekabel b'atzafon. V'mamid b'ataran v'kibel b'atzafon. Possible that the din by the Kabbalah has to be you have to stand b'atzafon, you have to catch b'atzafon, and if you stand b'ataran and you catch b'atzafon, it's possible. So you would think as well, Yakal Avzeh. You would think the same thing is true by the Sheikhet as well. Tamalaymar Isai. Isai. Only he is batzafain. However, so we need the extra word of Isai to teach us that the sheikhet does not have to be batzafain. So says the Gemara, we can already learn that from Rav Chaya. What do we need the extra Isai by us for? Eloi say batzafain ve'ein ben oif batzafain. Says the Gemara, it's teaching me a different din. Now, when it comes to an oif, how's the oif? What is the shchita of the oif? Of course, we know the shchita of the oif is done the malika with the kain's thumb. That does not have to be about Tzafin. Sal Kedei Techamina, I would have thought, Leisi Bekal V'chaimer, I would think learn out from Kal V'chami Ben Tzayin. That what? Essentially, like Kayin, a Ben Tzayin, a regular sheep, Shalai Kava like Kayin. That the Shchit on this din that we learned way back in Zvachim world, that the Shchit of a carbon can even be done by Yisrael. A fascinating din. It does not have to be done by a Kayin. And even though Shaloi Kavaloi Kayin, still what? Kavaloi Tzafain. Yes, it has to be done by Tzafain. Ben Oif. So now a bird has an additional maila. That what? A bird is yesh a kavala kain. So L'chaira says the Gemara ain't a din shenikvaloi tzafain. It should be pasha. It has to be done by tzafain. So you don't need the extra pasuk to teach us that. Says the Gemara, not so fast. But wait, Mala ben Sain. Shekin kavaloi kli. The ben Sain requires a kli. It has to use a knife. Whereas Malika of the Ben Oif is done with Malika, with the Kain's thumb. So maybe it's not the same. Says the Gemara, Ella Isai Bat Safain, a new din. Vein Pesach Bat Safain. That a unique din that the carbon Pesach does not have to be done Bat Safain. Says the Gemara, why do you need a special pasuk for this? Pesach med Rav Elazar ben Yaakov nafka de Tanya Rav Elazar ben Yaakov Aimer Yochli Pesach in Safain. I would have thought the carbon Pesach has to be done by Safain v'dinhu, and indeed it makes sense. Uma oila shleikav leizman b'shchitasa. An oila does not have a din of a zman. An oila does not have a specific time, it has to be shecht, and yet kavalei tzafon. Pesach shekavalei zman l'shchitasa, din it's pashit shekavalei tzafon. Says the Gemara, but wait, malach king kalil, an oil is fully burnt up. Says the Gemara, you're right. Mechatos. We learn out from Mechatos. That what? Malachatos came mechaperes al chayve krisos. You can't learn out from Mechatos. Chatos has a maila that it gives a kapara for those who are chayv krisos. Says Gemara, me asham malashkin kachay kadashim. So says the Gemara, you know we're going to learn it out from. We can learn it out to make kulu. Learn out from all mekulu nami. We as well cannot learn out shkin kachay kachim. So we're stuck. Says the Gemara, so what does this word Aisai? We see how far one little word of the Torah goes. It's one little miyah we're trying to figure out a length. Ella. Says the Gemara, Loilam kedekamrina meikar Aisai ba'asafin ha'sheichei b'tzafin. And what was the kasha? The kasha on the top of today's Amud was the kasha like with Rav Achaya nafka. Rav Achaya lav lemutei shachei b'tzafin hudasa. Why not? Elohachi kamers. What Rav Achaya meant. Ein ha'sheichei b'tzafin aval Mekabel batzafon. Mekabel melokach velokach navko lokach loy mashmalei. That Josh Rav Achai does not hold them, and therefore that's what we need with the word oisai for. We continue about 15 lines to the bottom of the Amid, quoting the next part of the Mishnah, which was what? Yechayev al ishasei, the kneading al richasa, the preparing, v'ala fiyasa. And this is after the carbon mincha becomes chametz. Then there's an additional chiyuv for every step in the carbon. Amar Rav Papa afaya loike. If you bake the carbon mincha after it becomes chametz, loike shtayim achas al richasa v'al achas al fiyasa. One on the preparing it, and one on the baking of it. Says the Gemara, baking is unique, so therefore that should be the only one that you're chayav, not as well in the aricha. Lo kasha hadarachu va'afahu hadarachavre v'yavle v'afa. Meaning, baking has its own chayav, but if you did both, then you'll have an extra iser as well. Tana Rabbanon continues the Gemara 4 lines on the white lines. Bechar shachazaydam. A bechar, firstborn animal that had a lot of dam. Life-threatening illness. If you leave it untreated, this is a form of like a high fever. Makizin halacha is you let some blood. Makizin oisem in adam. But you do in a place that the bechar will not get a mum. Vein makizin es adam b'makayim shayis by mum devi Rabbi Meir. Chachamim Aimrin, is you can even do Concise Daf, you can even let out blood. Af be'makim she'isa b'imam. Ubelvad, but provided shlo yishchat al oisai mum. Provided that what? You cannot do the shchita on that mum. What does that mean? Look at Rashi, second to last Rashi, and Amr Rashi yishchat al oisai mum. Ad she'eh b'imam me'atzmai. The b'chari nanecha b'chotz. Ad she'eh b'imam. So it's not enough of a mum that will allow you to eat the carbon based on that mum. Shita number 2. Shita number 3, Rabbi Shimon Omer. As we turn over to Nevav Beis, Af Nishchat Eloisei Mum. Says Rabbi Shimon, no, this Lamaisa is a mum, and once it's a mum, the halacha is you eat the carbon ba'chutz. Continues the Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, says Rabbi Yehuda, fourth Shita, says Rabbi Yehuda, Afilu Meis. Says Rabbi Yehuda, even if the animal is going to die, still ein makizin lo yazadam. Let the animal die. You're not allowed to do Concise Daf. You're not allowed to do what? Give the animal a mum. Continues the Gemara. So we have a 4-way debate in this brisa, dealing with what do we do when you're obviously not supposed to give the animal a mum, but the animal has a life-threatening illness. So how do we deal with it? So says the Gemara, let's analyze the shitos. Amar Rav Chia bar Rava. Third line in Vav Beis. Amar Rav Yechon. Hakol moedim, everyone agrees. B'mechamitz. Achar mechamitz. Everyone agrees that if we have chametz, a mincha that's chametz, and another mincha that's chametz, Shil Chayiv, that even Rav Shimon Chachamim, who would say that an animal that already has a mum, you can give it another mum, they're going to be maskim, that anyone that is helping, Zak Rashi, in the extra chametz process, you shape it, you knead it, you bake it, everyone agrees you're going to be chayiv. And of course, that's the parallel to our sugya. Why does everyone agree to this? Can't make it into chametz. But that's one case everyone agrees. Similarly, if someone caused an animal not to have children, he castrates the animal after someone already castrated it. Again, you mutilate an animal that's already been mutilated as well. Even though the animal is already not able to reproduce, anything that is done to the animal, there's going to be a chiyuv as well. So what's the machlokes? The machlokes by this bachar is ela b'matel mum b'bal mum. You have an animal, you have a bachar that has achazodam. This is where we have a machlokes. Can you put a mum in the bal mum? Rabbi Meir said, "Call mum liyei boy." No, you're not allowed to make any mum. Says Rabbi Meir, whereas the Chachamim Aimrim, therefore even though it has a mum, you can't make a mum. Rabbanan Savri Tamim, yeah, it has to be Tamim L'Ratzain to find favor, which teaches us, but if it already has a mum, say the Chachamim, then you would be able to give it a mum. So now the classical kasha Rameir Nami Yoksiv Tami L'Ratzain. What does Rameir do with the Chachamim's pasuk? Says Gemara, Hulemute Balmum Meikara. Zoktra Meir, that comes to exclude if it was a Balmum Meikara, was born with a Balmum, then it'll be different. Frakti Bar Balmum Meikara. Tikla ba'almahu. Balmum Meikara. It doesn't have a din of a bachar bichlal. It's like a tikla. It's like a tree. If you look at Rashi, it's like kadosh. There's no kedusha that's an animal. So why do you need a special pasuk for that? Rather, it excludes a psule mikdashim, an animal that is pasul after it's been redeemed. I would think just like the animal, even after it's been redeemed. It's usher because of avoida, the shearings and the work of that animal's usher. So I would think b'mumanami litasri. You're also not allowed to make a mum. Kamash malan, that's the chiddush. That at that stage you would be allowed to make a mum. Such Rameir says, Rabbanan Ami Oksiv Kalbam Lo Yaboy. Homi Bailach Letanya. The new Rameir is passing for the following brisa that says, Tanya v'chamam liyaboy ein liyela shlo yeboy mum minayin shlo yigraim lo yayidachiv. How do you know you cannot cause a mum through something else? Which means she'eniach batzig o devela al gabi oizen, can't put dough or press figs on the ear, k'teshava yakelav yitzlena, that a dog will come eat the food and injure the animal. Tamalaymar kol mum. That's what you need the extra kol mum. Amar mum v'amar kol mum teaches this extra limud, and that's going to be the machlekes within this brisa. And we finish Amar Avami haniach sa'ar, back to our carbon mincha that became chametz. So leave sa'ar al gabe isa. You leave the yeast on the mincha v'holach v'yashav loy, and you go and it's chamsa meilan, and turns into chametz on its own. Chayiv Allah, you're chayiv k'maisa Shabbos, like by Maisa Shabbos, that if you set something into motion and it happens, you're going to be chayiv. If you look at Rashi in the first white line, says Rashi kekle b'chayiv miniach basar al kacholim, leave meat on coals b'Shabbos and it roasts on itself, you are chayiv. Says the Gemara, the Kasha, we're all wondering, oh, Maisa Shabbos, ki I gav them ima chayiv? Really? You're not chayiv on Shabbos for this? V'amar Rabbi Rechana, but teaches Rabbi Rechana as you turn over to tomorrow's daf and then Zayin Amar Aleph. Amar Rabbi Rechana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, hiniach basar al gevchavim. Then what? If you turned over the meat and you cooked it chayiv, well, you're going to be potter, you're not chayiv. So what does it mean in our case? You're going to be chayiv. So we conclude on my Rava, my chayiv nami the gomer k'maisa tzli shel Shabbos, like the roasting action of Shabbos. Just like if you turn it over to make it cook more, so too by the carbon mincha, if you allow it to get more chametz, it'll be chayiv. We'll pick it up from here. B'siyata dishmai.